In this video, I want to tell you something I've never really said out loud like this. 2023 almost killed me. Not physically, although that honestly may have been easier. I'm talking about the kind of death where you're still breathing, but you're not actually alive anymore. Where you look in the mirror and you don't recognize the person staring back. And I was a firefighter. That was my whole world, my identity, the thing that made me me. And I lost it. Not because I wanted to specifically, but because I had to. Because my brain and my body were screaming at me that if I didn't walk away, something way worse was coming. So in this video, it's not some polished transformation story where everything worked out perfectly. It's about what it actually looks like when you're drowning, when you're chasing anything and everything, drugs, alcohol, sex, more work, whatever, just to not feel what's actually happening inside of you. And then what happens when you finally stop running? If you stay until the end, I'll give you the exact 5 things that pulled me out. The systems that worked, not just theory, not motivational bullshit, the actual tools. But first, you need to see where I was. Because if you're in that place right now, I want you to know that you're not alone. And most of all, it's not permanent. Okay? Now, picture this. It's 2023. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed at 6:30 in the morning. Now, I've been awake for hours because sleep doesn't really exist anymore. Just this damn loop in my head. You're failing. You're not enough. You can't do this over and over again, like a song you just can't turn off. Now I'm staring at the floor trying to convince myself to go to work, to the job I used to love more than anything, the job I live for, my identity. And I can't. I physically cannot make myself stand up. My entire identity was built around that badge, was built around being a firefighter, the guy who shows up, the guy who helps people, the guy who runs towards the fire while everyone else runs away, right? So when that started crumbling, falling apart, I couldn't be that person anymore. I had no idea who the fuck I was supposed to be instead. How do you rebuild yourself when you don't even know what you're rebuilding? And you already achieved the dream that you thought you always wanted. I was chasing everything. Just trying to escape, trying to not be present in my own life, because being present, being here, meant feeling it. It meant that I had to experience the pain that was going on inside, and feeling it was honestly unbearable. The calls we went on, they were changing me, breaking something inside me that I didn't know could break. Now, I'm going to tell you about one that made a huge impact that I didn't realize until much later in my life. It was about 4 a.m. during COVID. I think it was 2020. Now, I'm in a full Tyvek suit, again, because it's COVID. We can't spread COVID at that time. Basically wearing a garbage bag, a sweatsuit in summer heat, 40 degrees outside. Now, we get called to pull a homeless guy out of a porta potty. VSA, so vital signs absent. It's probably our 20th call that day, that night. Hadn't slept. So drag this guy out of the porta potty, start doing CPR, and I actually get a pulse back. I'm bringing this guy back from the dead, which is, the whole goal. That's what we want to do. And while I'm doing chest compressions, and I've got the pads on and working them, his buddy begins running at me and swinging the stick, trying to hit me in the head. My crew's screaming at him to back up, and then my partner actually runs and just dump tackles this guy and detains him on the floor. Now, here's one of the things that actually made that call so hard. It wasn't specifically the homeless guy swinging sticks at my head. It was that a few days before, I had watched a baby die, an infant, 2-month-old. So the difficulty for me is that I was kneeling there in the dark, doing compressions, working on this guy, getting swung at, and all I can think is, why did the kid die? And this piece of shit gets to live. What kind of world is this? Right? How is that possible? But I didn't have time to process that. I didn't have time to think, because before I could even catch my breath, we got dispatched to another call, a jumper off a bridge. No time to think, no time to feel. You just go, right? And that's when I lost it. My humanity, that part of me that actually gave a shit, no matter where you were come from, no matter what walk of life you were living, right? You start to think you have to disconnect. That disconnecting is what makes you strong, professional, good at the job. But here's what I learned. You don't have to disconnect. You just don't have the right things in place to help you process what you're seeing and feeling. I stopped seeing purpose in any of it. It just became a job. The service piece, the reason I actually became a firefighter in the first place, felt like a joke, like something I had made up to make myself feel better. Because inside I was broken, completely dysregulated. My nervous system was fried. There's this dark joke we used to say all the time at the fire hall. I killed more than I saved, and it's true, right? It's supposed to be funny, but for me, the optimism was just gone. It was really just that. The belief that we were actually making a difference, that we mattered, it just disappeared. And for any first responders out there watching this, I know you can relate. Now, for me, what's interesting was that when I was lying awake at 3 a.m. spiraling, I wasn't dreaming about money or, thinking about success or accomplishments or any of that shit. All I wanted was to be calm. That's it. I wanted to feel relaxed and connected to something, to someone, and most importantly, myself. I wanted to stop living my entire life from a place of fear. I wanted my humanity back, to trust myself again, to believe I was capable of something more than just barely surviving each day, to love the world and the people around me. And I wanted to do without suppressing everything the way we were taught to growing up, and on the job, especially as a man, the aspect of being told, man up, be strong, don't cry. That's not what we do here. All that shit that sounds tough, but actually just makes you hollow inside and weaker. I didn't want to pretend mental strength meant ignoring the problem. And I definitely didn't want to sit around waiting for time to magically heal everything. Because honestly, here's the truth that nobody tells you. Time doesn't actually heal all wounds. If you don't address the underlying problem, if you don't actually deal with the problem underneath, they don't go away. They just go dormant. They go underground. And at some point, they come back up, usually at the worst possible moment. And they're often uglier than ever. So this one moment that changed my life forever, I had a phone call with one of my captains. Now, I was crying, I was shaking, panicking, listing all the reasons to this guy, who was one of my mentors, why I had to stop, why I had to get out, why I couldn't do this anymore. Why everything was falling apart for me, my world, and I couldn't go to the fire hall anymore. And he stopped me and he said, Adam, this sounds a lot like PTSD, brother. And my immediate reaction was, no way, not me. I'm too young. I've only been on the job for 10 years. I'm the guy who helps people. I'm strong. I don't need help. What are you talking about? No way. But the more I sat with it, the more I thought about it. And being given that permission, that acknowledgement from someone that I respected, that maybe something was actually wrong inside of me, it changed everything. At that moment, I was 3 weeks into a long, deep, and hard bender. Drugs, alcohol, whatever I could find. I was supposed to go on this TV show, and it fell through. And I was just running from everything. And the TV show was an escape in itself. And I realized for me that something terrifying was happening, right? I was more scared to go back to work than I was to admit that something was actually wrong with me. Drinking a bottle of tequila a day, doing drugs left, right, and center, just trying to keep my days going. And I couldn't operate anymore without having these panic attacks. I couldn't show up. The firehouse, the place I used to love more than anything, had become a building full of triggers. The city I used to work in, everywhere I went, every street corner, I'd have a spike in my heart rate. I'd begin sweating. I'd hear sirens, and I'd begin to trip out of my own house. Every alarm, every call, every shift, it was all triggered, and I couldn't control it. So lucky enough for me, I had a mentor and I had a captain who said, "This sounds a lot like PTSD," and gave me that permission. And that phone call changed my life. So here's what most people don't do, and why most people stay stuck. I didn't just heal. I didn't just wait it out. I didn't hope for the best. I got help, real help, therapy. Yeah, like lots and lots of therapy with amazing professionals and doctors, very blessed. But it wasn't just therapy, because I also found community, real community with people who understood, and spaces where I actually felt safe enough to say the truth about what was going on inside out loud. And then I built a system, not random shit here and there where I felt like it, an actual daily system I could rely on. From therapy and these tools and practices, I began to build my own toolkit. I started regulating my nervous system all day, every day. I stacked that toolkit with practices that actually worked. I paired my routines with specific tools that supported the person I wanted to become. I learned how my brain actually works. I questioned every belief I had about myself, about what I was capable of. I got curious about whether there was another way to see things. And here's what changed everything for me. When your nervous system is calm, relaxed, when you're breathing at a normal rate, when you can feel your body, you can actually see and think clearly, like really clearly, not through the fog of panic and fear or scarcity. When you can see clearly, you make different choices, better choices that align with who you actually want to be. And when you make different choices consistently over time, your entire identity just changes, it shifts, and you become a different person. And that was the mechanism. That was what actually worked. Not just talking about my problems once a week, not just waiting for time to pass to get better, but daily practices that regulated my nervous system so I could think straight, so I could feel safe in my body, and so I could choose who I wanted to be instead of just reacting to everything out of fear. And now, for me, what life looks like, it's that I don't panic when I hear sirens anymore. Maybe my heart rate spikes for a second and I get sweaty or whatever it may be. I get tense and I get distracted, but I know what's happening because I'm aware of it. And I have the tools now to be able to respond to those sirens that are going off. They used to send me into immediate flashbacks. And now I'm calm. Now I'm present. Now my body doesn't take control over me. I have control over it. And I also don't carry anger towards homeless people anymore. That was huge for me. This may sound sick, but years of anger built up from difficult calls made it really difficult, where you see somebody at their worst consistently, where they're fighting you, they're spitting on you, they're attacking you. And I wanted to let that go, because you never know. A chain has 50 links, let's say. Maybe that one time that you help somebody who needs that help, who's in a bad place, out of 50 times, that 50th time that you help them, they get better. And then they help 10 of their friends. And then those 10 friends help 10 of their friends. So you never know which one of those links in a chain can be the maker or the breaker, right? And so for me, coming back into beginning to connect and enjoy and love the homeless around me, people that were living on the streets, I went and was actually told to get a bag of apples from one of my therapists and hand them out to the homeless people on the streets. This sounds crazy. I know, it sounds random. But what it did was it allowed me to reconnect with the humanity that I had lost. And it worked. It helped me see them again as people that were just going through hard times, like any of us. And I don't blame other people anymore. I take full ownership of how I respond to what happens, because that's what I can control. I don't wake up with the dread, that feeling of like, oh God, another day, it's gone. Now I wake up with purpose, with gratitude, and with intention, with tools I know that work for me, right? And that work for everyone. Are there still hard days? Well, of course, I'm human, right? Life isn't perfect. But now I know what to do when those moments show up. I have the system, I have the tools. And the biggest change for me has been that I've regained my freedom. I don't have to convince myself to get through the day anymore. I don't have to numb myself to function. I don't have to pretend. I live life on my own terms. I built this life myself, brick by brick, practice by practice, and choice by choice. And nobody can take that away from me. And the same can happen for you. Right after I transformed my life, I started thinking, if this worked for me, could it work for other people? One of the times I knew it was bigger than just me was after teaching one of my classes. 6 people in this class, and there's a beautiful inner child visualization at the end where you see yourself as a 10-year-old in your childhood home, whatever that may look like, or whatever home was for you. And after this beautiful visualization, this man comes up to me and tells me that it was the first time that he'd cried in over 5 years. 5 years. Nobody had ever taught him it was okay to feel. Nobody had given him permission to be vulnerable, to be honest about what he was going through. There was another man who reached out, told me something really difficult. He told me he wanted to kill himself, that he was going through a really hard time and he didn't see a way forward. So I just told him to sit, and we talked. We kept talking, we kept talking, we kept talking, and we kept working. And about a year later, he told me those conversations saved his life. That without this work that he was doing, he wouldn't be here anymore. Now, most people don't have a safe place to actually feel, to be vulnerable without being judged, to admit that they're struggling maybe without being seen as weak. So I created that space, and it's working. I felt people take back control of their lives, not by making it overwhelming, but by giving them specific tools to regulate their nervous system, to rebuild their identity step by step, to find purpose again in ways that feel real and connected. Now, remember when I said I'd show you exactly how to do this? Well, I created a free course, the exact 5 things that changed my life. Now, here's what's in it, okay? Listen up. First, how to regulate your nervous system on demand. Specific tools you can use so you can think clearly when stress hits instead of just reacting out of panic. Really important. Okay. Number 2, secondly, why you feel stuck under pressure, under stress. When you understand what's happening in your brain, you can work with it instead of fighting it. A little more brain science to really connect to what's going on inside. Thirdly, how to rebuild your identity through daily structure. Small, consistent actions stacked that help you become who you actually want to be. So you're not just surviving anymore. You're building a life that is meant for you. Number 4, how to reframe your beliefs through action. You can't just change your beliefs by thinking differently. You need to challenge the stories and the narratives through what you actually do by specific actions. And finally, 5th, how to create a personal toolkit you can rely on every single day. Specific practices, again, that bring you back to that calm when things get difficult, when things get hard, and how to pair those tools with specific emotions and situations in your life. This is the same system I use today, and I used to go from sitting on my bed at 6:30 in the morning, trying to convince myself life was worth living, to waking up every day with genuine purpose. Now, I want you to click the link in the description, okay? You will get instant access to the full course. No credit card, no cash, no bullshit, nothing to buy. I'm giving this to you because I remember what it was like. I remember how hard it was. I remember feeling hopeless and lost and thinking there was no way out, no way forward. So if I can help even one person avoid some of that pain or get out faster than I did, then it's all worth it, right? So please click the link in the description, get that course and start today. Now, final thing, I know where you are right now. I know how it feels. I know what it's like to feel broken, to believe, the damage inside is permanent, that you're never going to feel normal again. It sucks. I know what it's like to wake up every single goddamn day wondering if it's always going to be this hard. But I also know something else. If you take action on what I'm about to show you in that course, you can find your calm again. You can reconnect with yourself and you can build a life that actually feels like yours, right? Now, this worked for me at my absolute lowest. It's worked for men who, thought they were beyond help, who thought they'd lost too much of themselves to ever really get it back. It can work for you too. Click that link, watch the course, and start implementing what you learn, right? Take your life back, one day at a time, one practice at a time, and one choice at a time. It's your life. It's time to live it. Take back control, and I'll see you in the next video.